Today's conversation is on the 50th Law by 50 Cent and Robert Greene. Today we discuss what he refers to in the book as hood alchemy, which I also refer to as spiritual alchemy. I use the two interchangeably, actually, as I have a lot of relatability to this book. It has been very helpful on my entrepreneurial journey to build 3 successful businesses, cultivate harmonious relationships and communication skills. And I will link in the description to the playlist to the various books that we've been discussing thus far from personal experience that has contributed to my results. So although I didn't grow up in an environment like 50 Cent, there was a lot of similarities. As I wasn't born into wealth, as a matter of fact, I never had any money growing up, and there was trouble one step away. Fights in nightclubs, weapons being pulled out. If you've been watching my videos for a while, it can be hard to believe. Which goes to show you how far you can transform your life. What I find is common in spiritual alchemy and hood alchemy, as he describes it, is the transmutation of fear. In particular environments, in particular circumstances, legitimately, there can be a lot of fear because there's danger that presents itself. You could be physically harmed. And being in those particular situations, and actually at times being harmed, what happens is you may develop identification to fear in a way that you could say generates the illusion of holding you back from doing the things you love to do, where realistically, from taking those steps, there is no outcome that is harmful. Yet if a child has conditioning where they grew up in an environment where they were afraid to walk to school, afraid of someone that they picked a fight with coming back at them with a group of friends, which actually happened to me one time in high school, what happens is a person can identify with fears to the point where, let's say, they approach a prospect in business or they're doing a business deal, and this fear may arise that can hold them back from taking the steps. So what I noticed was a lot of these fears would come up on the entrepreneurial journey, in relationships, during what we can call difficult conversations, where memories would appear in my mind prior to taking the steps. Imaginal activity would play out in my mind of potential scenarios that, upon connecting the dots looking backwards, were very unlikely to happen. And let's say if at times the difficult conversations did play out in harsh criticism or something like that, there was a tendency to respond with a fight response. Although not fist fighting, it was more like argumentations unnecessarily. So what this book helps is release fear so that you can take those steps anyways, whether it be having that what could appear as difficult conversation, which then upon the repetition of having these conversations, we see that the scenario, the fearful scenario that would appear in mind, which was just related to past experiences and programming in relation to those experiences, don't end up playing out. He says, after observing 50 and talking to him about his past, I decided that the source of his power is his utter fearlessness. This quality does not manifest itself in yelling or obvious intimidation tactics. Anytime 50 acts that way in public, it is pure theater. Behind the scenes, he is cool and calculating. His lack of fear is displayed in his attitude and his actions. He has seen and lived through many dangerous encounters on the streets to be remotely fazed by anything in the corporate world. If a deal is not to his liking, he will walk away and not care. So in particular scenarios, intuition can save a person's life. Intuition can provide the unconventional or nonlinear step that can help a person get out of harm's way. And if you've had those kind of experiences, not only can you relate to what he's saying, you can also relate to the fact that this develops, you could say, fearlessness. Because some way, somehow, you'll find a way to get to the particular outcome, whatever the desired outcome may be. In a business deal, you walk in and you trust that you're going to say the thing that is going to play out as facilitating the business deal. And you're not bound by rules or limitations of, let's say, what a person may learn in business books or sales trainings or marketing programs. It's unconventional, freestyle, we could say. And at times we find that some of that information can be very helpful. Yet at other times, the unconventional, intuitive step is more helpful and facilitates the deal. Now, if a person is afraid of doing the intuitive step, then consider this. During those times where I thought it was not right to do the intuitive step, even though upon connecting the dots looking backwards, it was the right step, I was aware that it was that imaginal activity from past and beliefs associated to that imaginal activity from my past that was generating the illusion of looking around to see what other people think and people's opinions to determine whether I should take that step or not. So that's key. A person may be looking around, worrying what other people think or opinions, and even if not applicable to the current situation, they may be overthinking it, clouding their mind with mental chatter of opinions before taking that intuitive step, which can result in hesitation, flinching unnecessarily, essentially generating an illusory gap between intuition and taking the step. And what I mean by the illusory gap is essentially the individual gets the intuitive insight as to what step to take. Then what may appear in mind is a whole bunch of illusory thinking, fear-based thinking, which then, if the individual identifies with that fear-based thinking, because there is a space between the appearance, as in the deal or whatever's happening in the environment, and that imaginal activity, the fear-based imaginal activity, where a person can choose. If the person identifies with the illusory thinking, which is not intuition, what can happen is convoluted behaviors, unnecessary arguments, at times conflict, unnecessary argumentation of the intellect. So what is helpful then is to value that space, value that silence, and to honor intuition. Through the repetition of doing that again and again and again, repetition again and again and again, the gap is closed. Intuition arises and the person automatically takes the step, which appears as he said here, if a deal is not to his liking, he will walk away and not care. What that means is that he had cultivated through the practice of repetition, of doing this again and again and again, in fearful situations, transmuting the fear. And we'll talk about how to do it with respect to what has been shared in this book. Through the repetition, what happens is intuitively he gets the insight, the resonant yes, as we spoke about with Danielle in the video that we released on Sunday. If you haven't seen it, I'll link in the description to it. The intuitive yes arises within and he takes the step. So rather than doing all this unnecessary convoluted behaviors that is a result of identification to particular stories of the past, which in those particular environments could mean that someone getting seriously hurt, possibly being incarcerated, ending up getting in situations where people come back looking for you, we can take the opportunity in those moments where it is clearly not helpful to identify with those beliefs to release it. And what it plays out as, and from personal experience as well, is if the deal is mutually harmonious, I will move forward with it. If it's win for the other person and lose for me, I'm not interested. If it is win for me and lose for the other person, I'm not interested. And through the repetition, you're able to let's say, make decisions quickly and rapidly. To the point even some of my friends and business partners had commented to me, how is it that you can just make that decision really fast without thinking things through? And I said, at times I do think things through. At times I do plan. And at times I receive the intuition and it's crystal clear and I move forward with it. And that has been really helpful in my entrepreneurial journey because those decisions that I made from the intuitive insight ended up playing out harmoniously. A recent example would be the event that Danielle and I did in Los Angeles a few days ago. The idea arose step by step, intuitive insights. We took the step, resonant yes, as we were discussing, and it worked out. We had a sold out event, everyone benefited greatly. It worked out ideally. Now, I've been an entrepreneur since 2009, full time. It wasn't this smooth in the beginning. There was opportunities presented on the entrepreneurial journey, during deal making, during sales, during conversations with clients, prospects, vendors, team members, where I practiced again and again, transmuting the fear. So rather than running away from the fear or identifying with particular imaginal activity in relation to fear, which generates a fight response or an unnecessary conflict response with another person or group of people, which in scenarios in the past growing up turned out as troubling situations that we could say, and unhelpful behavioral patterns, which over the years I have released. We don't identify with that programming, and mind gets purified from those untrue, illusory beliefs that are not needed. They just generate, as mentioned, unnecessary, convoluted behaviors, which can be conflict, unnecessary doing, unnecessary force, unnecessary frustration. We just release it so we can flow. Through the repetition of applying what we're going to talk about next, that was the result. Number one is defy all categories. So we're talking about being fearless, which is the premise of this book. Be fearless. Transmute the fear. Don't suppress. Don't repress the fear. Rather move forward with the intuitive insight and allow that energy in motion to propel you in taking the bold, confident steps, whatever the steps may be. Number one, defy all categories. He says, you are an individual with ideas and skills that make you unique. This world may seem to try and fit you into narrow categories that make you more predictable and easier to manage. The individual that trades their individuality for social acceptance tends to suppress the seemingly unconventional parts of their authentic way that are the source of their power. Your task is to retain or discover those aspects of your individuality that defy categorization and to give them even greater play. Remaining unique, you will create something unique and inspire the kind of respect you will never receive from conformity. So as we've been discussing, people value your authenticity. They value your individuality. Your individuality is helpful to people. There can be times an individual might not express their individuality, their distinct style, because maybe these illusory patterns, as we had mentioned earlier, fear-based, are suggesting that people won't accept you the way you are. What I have found from personal experience is when I poured my individual creative style into what I do, people appear to be in harmony with me, who were genuinely interested in doing a deal with me. I was genuinely interested in doing a deal with them, and we worked out a harmonious deal. All from being as I am, authenticity playing out. And as there's no limit to being as you are, consider releasing identification to particular beliefs that places you in categories that don't feel authentic, that are not true and authentic to your natural style, that feel restrictive, that restrict your fluidness, that restrict your movement. And at times, for example, I have walked away from business deals, or I had switched and pivoted and gone in different directions and went in different directions without hesitation because I felt that the direction it was going in was restrictive. And personally, I have no desire to do anything that restricts my flow. Do you really have a desire to do anything that restricts your flow? That is not authentic being. You truly desire to be as you are, in flow. So any kind of thinking that appears to restrict your flow, I recommend releasing identification to. Number 2, constantly reinvent yourself. The powerful learn early in life that they have the freedom to mold their image, fitting the needs and moods of the moment. Follow this path and find great pleasure in reinventing yourself as an author writing your own movie. So why I relate hood alchemy, as he describes, to spiritual alchemy is on the journey, on the entrepreneurial journey, I perform the hood alchemy, as he calls it, or the spiritual alchemy, where I am presented with the opportunities. If fear arises, let's say I'm about to do a public speaking event, fear arises, I release the fear and take that step anyways. Through the repetition of doing it again and again, those illusory beliefs are dissolved and I flow naturally. Back in the days when I used to teach these speed reading workshops as part of a business initiative, what happened was I would have fear and anxiety building up until the days I would teach it, which would be Saturday and Sunday. The way I was relating to the energy in motion, which was emotions, was fear or anxiety thought-based, we could say. And it would build up from Monday up until the workshops on Saturday and Sunday. And through the practice of releasing the emotions and taking the step anyways, not identifying with the illusory thoughts in mind that suggested fear and anxiety, those beliefs were dissolved. The fear was transmuted into excitement. I feel a genuine excitement before I do live events. For example, the week leading up to it, I was feeling genuine therapeutic excitement. I was feeling excitement and flow leading up to the workshop. And as we've been discussing, we talked about this at the event, flow is therapeutic. So we can say then, there's therapeutic benefits for transmuting fear to do the thing that you genuinely desire to do from a state of flow. Number 3 is subvert your patterns. What can prevent a person from using their mental fluidity and freedom that we naturally possess are the physical routines in their lives. We may see the same people and do the same things, and our minds follow these patterns. The solution then is to break this up. By taking the right step we have never taken before, we place ourselves in unfamiliar territory and our minds naturally awaken to the novel situation. So practically speaking, take different routes, visit what we can call strange places, encounter different people that challenge our minds instead of dull them. See, one of the realizations I've had about these fear-based beliefs is it generates the illusion of the person looking for confirmation bias to just validate these beliefs, to further identify with these particular beliefs. And by switching it up, by exploring books that you would never read, by entertaining conversations with people who see reality different. For example, as mentioned where I grew up, some of my friends were more interested in book knowledge. Some of my friends were more interested in street knowledge. Some of my friends were doing things by the book. Some of my friends were doing things unconventionally. And some of my friends may even at times do things where they would find themselves in trouble. And what I found is that by engaging in conversations with these different groups of friends, I would learn insightful things. There were things that each of them taught me which proved to be helpful in particular situations. The advice that they gave me, the wisdom that they shared, helped me in situations where books had not talked about the steps, and actually the 50th Law has some of these steps in it. There were a lot of books that didn't have the particular steps that some of my friends had learned through challenging situations, and they shared that wisdom with me, and I benefited greatly from it. The next is create a sense of destiny. He says, the higher your self-belief, the more your power to transform reality. Having supreme confidence makes you fearless and persistent, allowing you to transmute obstacles that seem to stop people in their tracks. This facilitates also other people believing in you as well. And the most intense form of self-belief is to feel a sense of destiny impelling you forward. So we talk about being on purpose. In the earlier stages, my major driving purpose was to never worry about not having money. Then after that, the driving purpose was to help people who are experiencing challenging situations, who have been identified with particular programming patterns, where they feel fearful, helpless, so they could release identification to those particular patterns. That's why I created my subconscious mind program. And I've helped many people over the years. So if there's ever a moment where I hesitate doing the thing that I genuinely desire to do, procrastinate or something like that, I think about my purpose and right away get up and do the thing. And all of the things that I do may change over the years based on leverage. As 50 Cent has also progressed in his various entrepreneurial initiatives, that sense of purpose is never suppressed or repressed. So we can say then that burning desire in relation to Think and Grow Rich fuels every initiative. And one of my favorites is transmutation. Anytime strong emotions arise that seem to prevent me from taking the step that I truly desire to take, I release the emotions. Anytime thoughts appear in mind that seem to suggest not taking the step in the direction that I truly desire to take, I don't identify with those thoughts and I take the step anyways, because I honor my intuition and it's therapeutic. For me, therapy is doing my tasks, my projects, my initiatives related to my vision. Each time I'm presented with an opportunity to release the fear, release the thoughts that are untrue, I take the opportunity. And then as mentioned, the gap closes between the intuitive insight and taking the step. And eventually what happens is you automatically, naturally take the step without the fear. Number 5 is bet on yourself. He says, it is always easy to rationalize doubts, particularly when times seem to be tough. From this doubt, a person may convince themselves they should not take any risks, that it is better to wait for when circumstances are more propitious. But this is a dangerous mentality. It signifies an overall lack of confidence in yourself that will carry over to better times. When you move forward on some new venture or direction, your mind will snap to attention. Your energy will be focused and intense. By feeling the necessity to be creative, your mind will rise to the occasion. Now, I found this to be the case as well. And actually, this represents everything we've discussed thus far. If the intuitive insight appears in mind, I take the step. It's therapeutic. We can call it the inner work. What do I mean by that? Because when I take the step, I don't identify with the fear-based thoughts. I allow the emotions to be released. We could say I feel the fear and do it anyways. It's okay to feel fear. There's nothing wrong with feeling fear. What I choose to do is be as I am. And I choose to be as I am by taking the intuitive steps in the direction that are related to my vision. Step by step over the years, I built 3 successful businesses. Step by step, at times during those steps, fear may arise, fear-based thoughts. Emotions are experienced as fear. That's okay, I take the step anyways, again and again and again. We can also say entrepreneurship is therapy. We can also say entrepreneurship is a spiritual catalyst. We can also say entrepreneurship is a transformational modality. To prove to yourself, you could say that fear is not a bad thing. You could say fear is your friend. If fear arises, there's an opportunity to be as you. If fear arises, no shame, no condemnation. It is an opportunity to apply what he refers to again as hood alchemy, so that you could be fearless. So I trust you found this video to be helpful. Let's conclude this with an auto suggestion to further encourage. You could say, being as I am, I allow fear to inspire me forward in doing the things that I truly desire to do. Through the repetition of transmuting fear again and again and again, body moves naturally and ideally automatically in the direction that is in harmony with my vision. As a result, people, environment, circumstance, information appears to transform. Team members, friends, clients, vendors, all appear to be on purpose as I am, transmuting fear propelling me forward to actualizing my visions.